Okay, y'all, this is not your average royalty. What if I told you there's a real possibility Meghan Markle never gave birth to her kids? Sounds wild, right? But buckle up, because this isn't just internet gossip anymore. It's a full-blown rabbit hole of timelines that don't match, weird baby bump videos, and even her own family dropping bombshells. And the deeper you dig, the more everything starts to feel off. Now, we're not talking about random Twitter threads here. Meghan's own dad, Thomas Markle, straight up claimed she had her eggs frozen long before she ever met Prince Harry. Her brother allegedly went a step further, saying she had a hysterectomy while still married to her ex, Trevor Engelson. So how does someone go from possibly not being able to carry children to suddenly having 2 kids with a royal title? Look, this isn't about throwing shade for clicks. It's about asking the uncomfortable questions the media refuses to touch. Why aren't there any real birth photos? Why does every public appearance with the kids feel awkwardly staged? Why does Meghan act so distant every time someone brings them up? When you're in the public eye, and especially when you're cashing in on a royal brand, people are going to notice the inconsistencies. And trust me, there are a lot. So if you're ready to dive into one of the most eyebrow-raising royal stories ever whispered behind palace walls, let's get into it. Because once you see the full picture, you can't unsee it. My name is Lola. Let's start where it all begins, inside Meghan's own family. Thomas Markle didn't just throw his daughter under the bus, he backed it up with specific claims. He said Meghan had her eggs frozen years ago, before she even stepped into the royal spotlight. That's not exactly a casual family anecdote. It's medical-level information, and it left a lot of people asking serious questions. Then her brother reportedly added even more fuel to the fire by claiming she underwent a hysterectomy. Not speculation, he said it outright. That's a major surgery, and if true, it would make carrying children naturally impossible. Now, most people would expect that kind of statement to cause media chaos, but guess what? The mainstream outlets barely blinked. And this didn't happen in isolation. Meghan's relationship with her family has been rocky for years, but these specific claims strike at the very core of her motherhood narrative. Her father even called her out, saying she's not the same person anymore. Less loving, more calculating. Add to that the eerie silence from Meghan herself on these allegations, and the suspicion just keeps growing. Nobody's saying it proves anything, but when multiple family members independently drop receipts that challenge the fairy tale image she's projecting, you can't help but side-eye the whole situation. Especially when those claims line up suspiciously well with the public weirdness surrounding her pregnancies. Now here's where things start getting even weirder, and follow the money, because it always tells the story. If Meghan really did freeze her eggs back in the day, she would have needed some serious cash to keep them stored. We're talking up to $9,000 a month. That's not pocket change, and she wasn't exactly ballin' back then. During her Suits days, she reportedly made around $7,000 per episode, and she wasn't in every episode. When you break it down, her total screen time across the entire show adds up to barely over 2 hours. That's right, 2 hours total. So where would the money come from to keep those eggs preserved long term? According to insiders, it didn't. There are whispers that she lost access to them because she couldn't keep up with the storage payments. And if that happened, and if the hysterectomy rumors are true, we're looking at a timeline where Meghan no longer had viable eggs, but still went on to have 2 children years later. That disconnect is where things stop making sense. No one wants to shame someone for having fertility issues, obviously. But if you're building a brand, a legacy, and even monetizing motherhood for public consumption, people want authenticity. And if there's any chance the narrative is fabricated or manufactured, you better believe folks will notice. And they have. Now let's talk about the kids, Archie and Lilibet. Ever notice how off things look when Meghan and Harry appear with them? Public outings feel more like a press shoot than a family moment. There's a stiffness to the body language, especially from Meghan. No casual affection, no spontaneous hugs or candid laughter, just rehearsed smiles and perfectly posed shots. It's not just body language experts saying this. Regular people have noticed that something feels unnatural. One of the biggest eyebrow raisers, a Disneyland outing where Lilibet looked noticeably different on 2 separate days. Different dress, different behavior, and according to some eagle-eyed fans, possibly a different child. Even in private documentaries or carefully curated interviews, Meghan rarely shows warm, motherly engagement. It's always polished, almost like she's performing motherhood instead of living it. Compare that to any celeb mom just vibing with their kids, and you'll see the difference instantly. This isn't about attacking her parenting. It's about the glaring absence of organic interactions. If you're a parent, you know how chaotic and unfiltered those moments are. But with Meghan and Harry, everything looks managed, controlled, like the kids are props instead of people. And when you stack that on top of all the other strange details, the suspicion gets louder. Because if these kids really are her biological children, why does every interaction feel like a press conference instead of a playground? Even critics admit that this kind of scrutiny wouldn't exist without years of image manipulation fueling the public's suspicions. Now, let's get into the clip that sent the internet into a frenzy, the infamous moon bump moment. In a video that resurfaced during the pandemic, Meghan was seen walking through a hospital wearing what many claim was a visibly fake pregnancy belly. And we're not talking about minor speculation here. The footage shows the bump shifting, folding, and even collapsing in on itself as she bent over. People zoomed in. They slowed it down. They dissected it frame by frame. And what they saw didn't scream baby bump. It screamed foam padding. Viewers noticed how the shape deflated momentarily, something that's biologically impossible if you're actually pregnant. Now, skeptics tried to write it off as a wardrobe malfunction. But let's be real. How often do you see a pregnant belly behave like it's filled with air? And the timing made it even sketchier. This happened at a time when strict lockdowns were in place and hospitals were operating under tight rules. So why was Meghan walking around with cameras in tow, in a maternity ward, no less? The optics couldn't have been worse. The whole thing looked staged, like a publicity stunt meant to sell an image of motherhood rather than actually documenting it. And for someone so image conscious, you'd think Meghan would be ultra careful about how those moments came off. But this one got away from her, and the internet hasn't let it go since. Here's the other half of that moon bump mess, the hospital itself. During peak lockdown, maternity wards were some of the most locked down spaces in healthcare. No visitors, no filming, and absolutely no outside production crews. Yet somehow Meghan managed to stroll through one, baby bump on display, flanked by cameras. How did that happen? That's what fans and even some industry insiders are still trying to figure out. If this was just a photo shoot or a private tour, it violated every known health protocol at the time. If it was sanctioned by the hospital, why haven't they come forward to clarify? No public statement, no media acknowledgement, just a strange silence. And silence only adds fuel to conspiracy theories. Some viewers think it was all green screen. Others believe it was an abandoned wing dressed up to look like a hospital. Regardless of the method, the intent seems clear. Craft a narrative that says, I'm pregnant, I'm glowing, I'm thriving. But here's the twist. If Meghan really was pregnant, wouldn't she want those moments to be authentic? Why stage it? Why risk so much for a controlled image when real pregnancy would have given her all the credibility she needed? That's what makes this so confusing. The effort to fabricate something that could have been shown naturally is what keeps people questioning. It wasn't just the footage, it was the setting, the secrecy, and the sense that we were being shown a story, not the truth. Even outside of the moon bump chaos, Meghan's overall behavior has raised more than a few red flags. Have you ever noticed how detached she seems whenever her children are mentioned? No glow, no warmth, just awkward pauses and vague, scripted lines that feel like they came from a PR handbook. In high-profile interviews, you'd expect at least a flicker of genuine emotion. But instead, Meghan often delivers flat, emotionless answers when asked about her kids. It's like she's playing a role, not living it. And it's not just the tone, it's the actual language she uses. Cold, distant, almost like she's reciting facts rather than reliving memories. There's also the weird consistency in how the kids are kept just out of reach. No real candid photos, no spontaneous interactions, and no moments that feel like true parental affection. Even in private footage, the kids seem handled more by assistants than their own parents. It's subtle, but it adds up. When you compare Meghan's on-camera demeanor to almost any other celebrity mom, the difference is striking. Most moms light up when talking about their kids. Meghan looks restrained, like she's navigating a script instead of speaking from the heart. Add this to everything else, the moon bump, the hospital stunts, the family allegations, and the image starts to crumble. You can only fake it for so long before people start to notice the cracks. If you thought things couldn't get messy, let's talk legal documents. When Meghan and Harry registered their kids' birth certificates, fans quickly spotted something off. Her royal title, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex, was initially removed from Archie's paperwork and then mysteriously re-added later. That's not just weird, it's practically unheard of. Now, in the US, royal titles aren't recognized as legal identifiers. So why were they used at all? That's the million-dollar question. Insiders say even immigration officials flagged the documents and reportedly reached out to King Charles for clarification. Yeah, it got that serious. Then there's Lilibet's certificate, which also lists royal identifiers, even though Harry and Meghan had publicly stepped away from their roles by then. Why double down on the royal branding if you're supposedly all about privacy? It reeks of inconsistency. On one hand, Meghan claims she wants a quiet life. On the other, she's attaching royal titles to her kids like they're trademarks. And it's not just optics. It could have serious legal implications if those titles were used to gain privileges or recognition in ways not allowed under US law. Put it all together and it doesn't look like an accident. It looks like a calculated strategy to preserve royal status, even while pretending to reject it. And when you're willing to bend official documents to fit your brand, people start wondering what else might be manufactured too. Let's not pretend Meghan doesn't know what she's doing. She's been curating her brand from day one. And the idea of being the mother of royal children? That's next-level branding power. It ties her forever to the monarchy, even as she claims to want out. 2 kids with HRH titles aren't just family, they're leverage. Everything about Meghan and Harry's post-royal moves suggests a strategy built around legacy. From Netflix deals to children's books, their entire empire seems crafted to reinforce their family image. And the kids, whether biologically hers or not, are the centerpiece of that narrative. Some people say this is smart marketing. Others call it manipulative. But whatever side you're on, you can't deny the intentionality. You don't repeatedly invoke your children in interviews, documentaries, and book deals unless you know they boost your image. The strategy seems clear. Present an idealized family, deny access to the real details, and use curated visuals to sell the story. And so far, it's worked, at least in terms of keeping them relevant. But relevance built on shaky foundations can't hold forever. Because when you go this hard to control your image, every crack becomes a headline, and every inconsistency invites doubt. Meghan may have wanted her family to be a symbol of modern royalty, but she might have built a brand on illusions instead of truth. And that's a risky game. We've talked a lot about Meghan, but let's not forget Prince Harry. This isn't a one-woman operation. Harry's been complicit every step of the way. He plays the supportive husband role perfectly, but there's no way he doesn't know what's really going on. He's the one who grew up in the palace. He knows how the institution works, what's expected, and what's forbidden. Yet he's the one pushing for HR titles for the kids, even after stepping back from royal duties. And when his grandmother reportedly said no titles, he kept pushing, until King Charles supposedly gave in. Why? Because Harry understands the value of titles. They're not just ceremonial, they're currency. They open doors, get deals signed, and keep the brand alive. And Harry is just as invested in that brand as Meghan is. He's also the one launching lawsuits, giving speeches, and showing up on red carpets, all while claiming to hate the spotlight. It's pure contradiction. You can't say you're escaping media toxicity while making multi-million-dollar media deals. If Meghan's orchestrating the narrative, Harry is the one holding the camera. And at some point you have to ask, is he the victim, the partner, or the producer of this whole saga? Because his silence on the growing suspicion says just as much as anything he's ever said aloud. Despite all the careful planning, the illusion is starting to fall apart. Social media sleuths are connecting dots, frame by frame. They're noticing when the same child looks slightly different in photos, just days apart. They're catching slip-ups in interviews, changes in timelines, and recycled photos that raise more questions than answers. And as more people start to notice, the loyal defenders are becoming harder to find. The PR spin is starting to wobble. Even longtime supporters are beginning to say, wait, something's not adding up here. The problem with building a narrative on image instead of truth is that it doesn't take much for the mask to slip. One wrong photo, one offhand comment, one piece of paperwork that doesn't match, and the whole thing can come crashing down. And while the press has been gentle for years, even they can't ignore the noise forever. Eventually, someone's going to ask the big question on the record. And when that happens, there may be no spinning out of it. That's the danger of trying to control the story too tightly. People don't trust perfection, they trust honesty. And the more the story feels staged, the more the public starts looking for the strings. Even critics admit that this kind of scrutiny wouldn't exist without years of image manipulation, fueling the public's suspicions. So where does that leave us? With a question that refuses to go away. Did Meghan Markle fake her pregnancies and present stand-in children to the world as her own? We may never get hard proof, but the inconsistencies, the odd footage, the legal oddities, and her family's own words paint a picture that's hard to ignore. This isn't just about parenting. It's about public trust. It's about accountability. And it's about how far someone will go to protect an image, even if it means rewriting reality. The royal family's silence doesn't help. It only fuels the fire. If everything were above board, why not come out with clarity? Why the secrecy, the PR spin, and the staged moments that feel more like a campaign than a candid life? In the end, this could be one of the biggest image con jobs in modern royal history. And if the truth ever fully comes out, it won't just be Meghan and Harry who have to answer for it. It'll be every institution, every media outlet, and every person who helped keep the illusion alive. Until then, all we can do is watch as the cracks continue to grow and wonder just how deep this royal rabbit hole really goes.